Somebody please tell me what the Antichrist is. Somebody please tell me who the Antichrist is. Be interesting, wouldn't it? Along with 666 and some other things that seem to escape our understanding. I'm Zach. This is The Average Christian, a project once again about what it means to have a relationship with God, how to maintain that relationship through practical terms and practical means, and also how to hold ourselves and each other accountable. Welcome. We're looking at a word, a concept, what many believe is a person in the Bible, the Antichrist. And if that person comes, then it means the end of the world. It means this, it means that. What does the Bible say? You might be shocked. If you want to look in Revelation, in fact, you can look in Revelation 23, because there is no Revelation 23, and that's about exactly where you're going to find the Antichrist in Revelation. He doesn't exist there. He doesn't show up there. You can read all through the 22 chapters and no mention of Antichrist. So where do we find this concept of this person? And is it just one person? Is it somebody I'm supposed to be looking for that will signal the end of time? Well, John addressed it in 1 John chapter 2 and verse 18. He gives warnings about the Antichrist. Children, it is the last hour, and as you have heard, the Antichrist is coming. Now, by the way, he's writing this some 1900 years before now and saying it's the last hour. And people have been saying over and over and over, it's the last hour, and trying to predict the end of time. But of course, these are the last days. We'll leave that to God, though, as far as when Jesus is coming back. It's the last hour, and as you have heard, the Antichrist is coming. So now many Antichrists have come. So they were already in existence. They, by the way, not a singular person, many Antichrists have come. Therefore, we know that it is the last hour. He continues on verse 19. They went out from us, but they were not of us. If they had been of us, they would have continued with us. But they went out that it might become plain that they are not all of us. But you have been anointed by the Holy One, and you all have knowledge. I write to you, not because you do not know the truth, but because you know it, because no lies of the truth. Who is the liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist, he who denies the Father and the Son. He goes on in chapter 4 in verse 3, every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard was coming and now is in the world already. Interesting there that he's saying that not just a singular Antichrist. Now, there's all kind of imagery that comes up in trying to define an individual, a singular individual. A lot of people believe that it's talked about in Revelation. Here it is in 1 John, and he's talking about people who were once among them, who have left, who did not believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and they are considered Antichrist. And there still are many Antichrists in the world. So let's just get that out of the way, and let's move this into maybe more relevant terms for you and me. When you go to Matthew chapter 6, let's bring in the concept of devil worship. I remember being, middle school. Yeah, middle school. And they were doing specials on Ozzy Osbourne near Halloween and satanic music. And you always thought of, or at least I did, you always thought of some kids in some back lot behind a roses or something, sacrificing a small animal with a bunch of candles lined up into a pentagram or an upside down cross. And when you think of devil worship, you think of an Antichrist, those types of things. Really, it's a lot more simple than that. And you and I could be guilty, if I can use that word. Jesus drew a distinct line in Matthew 6, and God is all or nothing, whether I like it or not. Same Jesus in Matthew 7 that said there is a broad way and a narrow way. And if you were going to find the narrow way, it is just his way, what he wants. In Matthew 6, in verse 24, he had already told people to lay up their treasures in heaven. You and me, we should be laying up our treasures in heaven, not on earth where thieves can break in and steal, where moths and rust can corrupt, and that our desires are determined by our heart. And then he comes down to verse 24 and says the following: no one can serve two masters, for he either will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Now, you could say, well, in the King James, it says mammon. In other translations, it says wealth. It's not that money is evil by itself, but it's a representation of those who are striving after something which can be treated as an idol and take the place of God. So it stands for a larger whole and a larger for evil, so to speak. But notice what he says here once again. You can't serve two masters. And there are two ways to go. If we put Satan here, and we say, well, what does a devil worshiper look like, or someone who loves the devil? That's uncomfortable, isn't it, to think that I could possibly love the devil. He said, you will hate one and love the other. I'm uncomfortable with somebody telling me that there's a possibility I could hate God. Hate one, love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. So really, there are two choices. You either love God, you follow God, or you hate him. You either hate the devil or you love him and you follow him and you're devoted to him. Notice again here in Romans chapter 6 and verse 15, do you not know that if you present yourselves to anyone as obedient slaves, you are slaves of the one whom you obey, either of sin, which leads to death, or obedience, which leads to righteousness. So I got a choice. I can either be a slave to sin or a slave to righteousness. What does it take to be a devil worshiper, to be an Antichrist? Well, an Antichrist basically to deny that Jesus is the Son of God, that he died for our sins, those types of things. To be a devil worshiper, all I have to do is not follow God. I will be a slave to sin and a slave to the devil and even devoted. Sounds cut and dry, sounds drastic, but these really are the choices. And when Jesus comes back, there will be two groups of people, those who love him and those who hate him. I hope you'll find yourself in that first category. I want to thank you for listening today. If you're here on YouTube, thank you for being here. If you haven't already, please hit this subscription button below and help out our channel. If you want to see what we released last time, it's in this corner. And what YouTube recommends is over here for those listening on podcasts. We appreciate you being here as well. Asking you, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Share this with other people. If you want to see how you can sponsor us and help us with the necessary funds, go to our website, theaveragechristian.net.